let's first of all, let's understand a few things, right? Let's understand a few things. Number one, you work with the information that the customer is giving you, right? So what does that mean? What does that mean? What that means is that you need to collect the information from the customer first, right? Don't even open the system, don't do anything until you have all the information from the customer. So until you understand what you need to do. So that's why we gave you the scenarios, so that way you can read the scenario first and then you go to the system. So once I read a scenario, and I'm going to do this really quickly, I read this scenario and I say, and I know that number one, I have to select the filing status. Two, I have to enter the W-2 form. So quickly, I'm going to go look for what that W-2 looks like. Okay, well, it's right here, right there. Here's the W-2 for this customer, and then I'm gonna read the rest of the scenario, right? It says report health coverage, so that means I need to have a health care coverage information, right? Which I don't see it, so the customer has to tell me a little bit more about it. It says enter student loan interest, and then complete e-file information, which is something we're going to be doing today. So complete e-file information. So anyway, so your job is to, before you even open the return, you need to understand the customer, right? And this is something that's going to be really critical for you. It's going to be part of the ongoing practices, is understand, collect the info, understand what you're going to do, and then do it. So for instance, John Hammonds, and you can see the personal information for John Hammonds here. Here's the personal information. So now, at this point, I know a lot of stuff about Mr. John Hammonds. I also know that he has a spouse and a dependent. I also know that he received health insurance through his employer, so that means he's not going to bring me a form, so I don't have to do much in the system because his health insurance is through his employer. I also understand that he wants to pay, or he wants to report $250 in interest for the student loans. But I also know that the law says, I know that Irvin sent you a video last week for student loans, and the law says that you are not you can't really report $250, right? It has to be $600 or more before you can report any student loan interest. I'm not talking about student loan expenses, or I'm sorry, I'm not talking about student tuition expenses. I'm talking about student loan interest. So now I know a few things about the customer. So now, at the same time, I have the forms, right? I have the W-2 form, and that's about it, right? That's all he has. So now I know that what you call it, this customer, I know what he needs to do. I know what he has to. I know the forms that he's brought me. So now I can go in the system and start working with him, right? So never go into the system without, one, having all the forms, two, understanding what the customer, who the customer is and what they're trying to report, right? So, because then you're going to find yourself in that situation where, like, oh, well, what forms do I need to fill out? Well, really, the only forms you need to enter in the system are the forms that the customer is giving you, and then the forms you have to fill out. So the form you have to fill out, are forms that the system is going to provide for you. So I'll give you an idea. Look at this customer. This customer came with 2 W-2s. That's it. 2 W-2s. Those were the only forms that he came with. This is a simple return. 2 W-2s and the 8962. So he came with health insurance, right? So again, make sure that you ask the customer for all the forms before you start. And then once you have all the forms, you want to make sure that you understand the customer and who he is and what he or she is trying to do and how you're going to open this return, right? That's how you're going to determine whether the customer is single, married. That's how you're going to determine if the customer qualifies or doesn't qualify for certain credits. If the customer qualifies, or if the customer thinks he or she qualifies for a credit, but the story or the requirements that they're giving you, they do not match with what the IRS requires, then they're not going to qualify, right? So just want to make sure that you understand that part, right? You know, a lot of preparers get confused with like, oh man, what are the forms? Now, number one, the forms, the customer will give you the forms. Your job is to ask the customer for forms. Give me documents. Give me documents. Number two, based on what you're telling the system is going to ask you to fill out all the forms, right? So don't feel like you know, like, don't feel like, you know, you're not going to have that guidance from the system. So and remember, you know, most of you, especially those who are part of our franchise system, you have the chat system right here, just down below, right down below. If you are using FEIN, the FEIN number 794185, 794069, 792589, all of those are connected to the chat system. So you have the chat system down here, and you can chat directly with someone. You know, especially right now that we're not in tax season, you know, they're usually here answering all your questions over the weekend, especially when you have questions about taxes, right? So they're going to come and help you with taxes. Those guys are experts in taxes, so not so much about what the class was about or anything like that. They're just going to answer questions about the refund, right? They're able to come in here and work with you, but they're not going to know details about class. They're not going to know details about homework. They're not going to know details about financing or anything like that. So all of your questions, whether it's Irving or whether it's Melanie or Oscar, or whoever you find there, just tell them who you're working with, you know, what customer you're working with, social security number, and they'll be able to guide you through the process with no issues. So, all right. So as we begin to understand the returns, right? How do I know when I'm done? How do I know when I'm done? Well, number one, you know that you're finished when you have put in all of the forms that the customer gave you, right? So the customer gave me 10 forms, but out of those 10 forms, I determined, based on what I have learned throughout the class, I determined that only 5 of those can go in. The other forms don't really have anything to do, right, with income taxes, right? The customer brought me stuff that had nothing to do with income taxes. Some of the forms are not even his. He brought me receipts that are you know, personal, and they're not even they don't even come up to $1,000. So I'm not going to do any of that. So out of everything that the customer gave me, only 5 pieces of documents are the ones who I'm going to put in the system. So that's number one. What you put in, right? Put everything in. Everything that needs to go in, you put it in. And then number 2 is make sure that every form here, every form that needs to be green, it's green. How do you know what form needs to be green? Because they're red before. So if they're red, you need to turn them green. What does that mean? What that means is that you need to give it the right information, the required information, right? So once you have done those 2 things, number 1, put the forms in. The forms that you determine there are the correct forms that need to go into the system. Number 2, make sure that all your forms are in green. And once you're done, you're going to do something up here called error check. Red button up here called error check. So you run that, and you're going to look for errors, right? Errors. So here we go. There's I see an error right there. So I'm going to come over here and see what the error is. And it looks like this error, it's because line number 10 was not answered correctly. Look, line number 10 says that I have totals only, not a breakdown. I have totals. So let me let's do that. Let's go back and change this. And I think it's right. It's just it might be a system, an update issue that we're doing. So let's do this. Let's make a change here. Actually, what I'm going to do, I think we're working on this form right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to full, so we don't have to deal with that right now, and we'll deal with it in another return. Let me go ahead and remove this so we don't have that issue. And sometimes, especially right now, September, October, November, and December, you're gonna find some errors on the system because we are changing, updating things, and the error doesn't necessarily mean that it's yours. But once December's over, you're not gonna find that anymore, because that means that our system is ready to go for tax season. But right now we are training people. We are training chat operators. We are upgrading our system with new IRS rules. So sometimes you're going to find those situations that don't make sense, and it's not your fault. It's not your issue. So just want to make sure you understand that part. All right. So you go back to error check. You've done those two things that I told you to do. You already put the forms in, and you already make every form here green, right? Every form that needs to be green is green. And then after that, you're going to go to error check and run your error check. And once you've done that, you're going to have this green bar on the very top saying error check, it's clear. The one thing I want you to understand, an error and a warning are two different things. A warning, I'm just saying, hey, you know, it could be problems, right? It could be a problem for, you know, it could be or it could not be a problem, right? In error, it's telling you, hey, fix it before you move on. You're not going to be able to move on unless you fix it, okay? So again, an error is not the same thing as a warning. A warning, you know, not that big of a deal. An error, it is a big of a deal, because it's not going to let you do anything unless you fix it. A warning is just saying, hey, you might want to go back and check things. All right, cool. So another thing you can do is, and I'm gonna suggest this to everybody who's in this class, who's you're about to do income taxes for the first time, and even if you're about to do income taxes for the first time with D&J Financial, you need to come to the chat system here and have someone review this for you. Let someone review it before you tell the customer, hey, Mr. Customer, your refund is going to be $1,049. Have someone review it. Have a second look. It's going to take them 30, 40 seconds to review it, and then you can print it and give it to your customer. No big deal, right? But I just want to make sure that you got to be able to use all of your tools. Now, if you haven't seen the chat system yet in your system, don't worry about it. One thing that you're going to realize is, especially, it doesn't matter where you are, right? If you're in Atlanta, if you're in Dallas, if you are in Miami and Houston, doesn't matter where you are. We're going to have someone come to you, or we're going to have you come to the office. Either way, and we're going to set up all of your equipment to make sure that you are able to see everything. So don't worry about it. Remember, right now you're just in training, and there's a lot more to do until we get to the franchising, to opening your location and stuff like that. So cool. So this is where you say, whenever you have this clear check right here, this is where you say, all right, I'm going to have someone check it, and then someone's going to check it for you. They're going to go through line 40 and page form 1041 and 2 to make sure that it makes sense, that all the numbers make sense. They want to make sure that your W-2 and all of that stuff it's correct. Want to make sure that all the information that you've given us actually makes sense, right? So that's basically what we're doing here. So let me take a look at this for now. Let me just do a quick check right here for now. So anyway, so what you need to be focused on as you prepare returns, number one is as a certified preparer, you can't just wait for the form to turn green. You got to know what's going to make it turn green. And that's the point of the training, right? You can't just wait for the form to turn green, right? That should not be your goal. Oh, the form's going to turn green. Remember, some of you or most of you are going to receive an IRS identification number. What that means is that you have completed this test, and once we give you that identification number, it means that, and you've completed the test, it means that you personally have created an X amount of returns, that we have reviewed those returns for you, and that you know how to work a lot of these forms. You want to make sure that you're not just waiting for the form to turn green. A few things that you're not going to have when you are working with the customer. You're not going to have a scenario, okay? Remember, when you're working with the customer is not going to come to you with a scenario and say, hey, look, this is my story, right? No, you're going to have to build a scenario. In your head, right, you're going to have to build a scenario and say, okay, what do I do next? Based on what I've learned in class, what do I do next? And that's one of the things that you want to make sure that you keep in mind at all times, right, is I'm not going to have a scenario, but I know that I need to collect all the info first. I know that I need to put all the forms first. I'm going to go back to my notes. And another thing, right, you're going to be practicing from now all the way to tax season. You're going to be practicing. So you're going to be okay. Perfect. So we have this return here. As you can see on the return, there is 1,092. That's the refund, right? Now the question is why? How do we come up with that refund? And this is what we're going to work on for the rest of the class, and this is what we're going to work on tomorrow. And then after that, and I'll give you instructions as far as what happens after tomorrow. But there's going to be more projects tomorrow, because the end of this course, the way you certified is you need to be able to explain a Form 1040. That's how this course ends. If you can explain Form 1040, you know where the numbers come from, you know what the forms are, you know how this works. So the way you get certified is you need to be able to explain Form 1040, right? Where the numbers come from. You're gonna be doing a few more tests at the end of this week, but the big test, the one that matters the most is, can you explain Form 1040? Because then you can tell me what forms I need to use, how the form works, what the rules and regulations are for those forms. And all the forms that I'm talking about are the ones that I taught you on week 1 and 2 of this course. So let's jump into Form 1040, page 1 and 2. So what I'm going to do is, and if you can pay a lot of attention to this, I'm going to come up here to the bar on the top, and I'm going to print it. So I am going to print that for you. And I'm only going to focus on form page 1 and 2. So I'm just going to click on that, and I'm going to not make it a client's copy. I'm going to make it a full copy. That way I don't see that watermark there. All right, there you go. We have Form 1040, and from here you can do a couple of things, right? You can print it, you can print the form, you can download it to your computer and then and email it if you want to, but you can print it. So let's do that. Let's go through the form and see what is it that we need to understand, because this is what you need to explain to the customer. This is what you need to be able to explain to us as a registrar, as a certified preparer, that you understand where the numbers came from, that you understand how the numbers work. So, all right, so Mr. David Thompson, right? Here is a here you go, Mr. David Thompson. You know, before we finish, I would like for you to review I would like for you to review this this information. I want to make sure that all the information is correct. All right, all the information is correct. So it's going to say yes, all the information is correct. Perfect. Let's continue then. And then you keep going. Let's get down to the exemptions, right? On the form, it's telling me, it says that you have 2 exemptions only. All right, 2 exemptions, which is yourself and the spouse. What are exemptions, right? If you remember, exemptions are $4,050 per person. That's the amount that the IRS is going to reduce from your taxable income, $4,050. So exemptions are good. No dependents. As you can see, 0 dependents. There's no dependents right there. So we'll keep going, and we're going to a very important part, which is the income part, right? The income part, and we're going to look through the lines, as you can see, from line 7 to line 22, line 7 to line 22, you're going to have all the types of income. So whether you have a W-2, whether you have a W-2G, whether you have I don't even have to go into the forms anymore. I can just look that. I can just see that if the customer had a line has income in the line 7, I know that this customer had a W-2, or they might be multiple W-2s in there. I know the customer has income on line 19. I know that's unemployment. I know there's a 1099-G in the system. I don't even have to go look for it. I already know, because I know the types of income, right? I already know that if there's income on line 12, this customer has a Schedule C, and I know that the customer is paying self-employed tax. So his tax bill is going to be higher than other people. All right, so so this is the form that you need to understand. This is the part where the customer is reporting all of his or her income. And then we go to adjustments. And you got to understand adjustments. We are right here, right now, adjustments. And from line 23 all the way to line 37 or line 36, you're going to find all of the adjustments. Adjustments are good for your income. So anytime you do any adjustments, what you're doing is reducing your income, your taxable income, right? So so I'll give you some examples, right? Here's the something that we have been talking about: tuitions and fees, or student loans deductions, right? That's going to make your income lower, not literally lower, but what's going to do is at the end of the year you reported $50,000 in income, and then you have a deduction of let's say $1,000 of interest deduction, right? So that means that you're actually reporting $49,000. It doesn't mean that you make less money, but you have income deductions. So income deductions 23 to 37 are good, but you need to know what they mean, right? Usually what that means is that you have another form where you figure out what the deduction was going to be. So I just highlighted form 20 or line 26, moving expenses. You're going to have a video about that later on in class, or later on, this month in your materials. We're going to continue to load more videos. So you're going to have a video of moving expenses, how they work. You're going to understand that they're work related only. So if you move, it's because you either moved to a new job or you moved because you were looking for a new job, but you have to prove that. So, but whatever expense goes into line 26 is called adjustment, right? You're adjusting, you're reducing your income. And what I want to make sure that you understand is that adjustments are not credits, right? They are not credits. So what they're doing is they are reducing your income. So the less income you report, the less taxes you're going to pay. So they are not credits, okay? So if someone says, oh, I want to see how I can get the moving expenses credit, it's not a credit, it's an adjustment, okay? Educator expenses, you're you're a teacher and you spend money out of your pocket for the classroom, right? That goes in there. It's not a credit, it's an adjustment to the income. It reduces your income. The less income you report, the more, the less taxes you pay. This is not meant for you to get a bigger refund, right? All right, let's continue. And as you can see, we're going to move on to taxes and credits. Okay, taxes and credits, right there, taxes and credits. And look, if you ever wonder what the actual what the deductions are, so here's your itemized or standard deduction. Well, the IRS is going to always print their deductions right there, right? So I don't want to skip any points, but remember when we were talking about the customer trying to add all these personal expenses, he has the receipts and all that proves that he has the expenses, but he also doesn't have enough expenses, right? So when you calculate those expenses, when you add them up and you're like, okay, this customer, well, your expenses are not over 6,300, right? When you're single, your standard deduction is 6,300. When you're married, filing jointly, is 12,600, and when you're head of household, is 9,300. Well, your expenses that you're giving me here, your receipts for personal expenses for Schedule A, they're not bigger than any of this, so I'm not going to use them, right? I'm going to use the standard deduction because that's going to benefit you more. So taxes and credits, you gotta know how they work. You gotta know how you explain this to the customer. You gotta understand that there are some credits that are refundable and some credits that are not refundable. So let's talk about those right now. And here we go. We have the line 38 is showing us. Line 38 is showing us the income that is going to be taxable. This is the income that's going to be taxable. So from here, we're going to talk about a couple of things that are going to help us come up with a taxable income. What's a taxable income? An income that can be taxed. Even if you already paid income taxes, the IRS at the end of the year, it's going to see if you still owe money or if they owe you money. So I want you to write this down. It's called reconciliation. And I've sent it to you via chat. It's called reconciliation. The IRS is going to, at the end of the year, when you are presenting or you're doing your income taxes, you're doing a process of reconciliation. What happened throughout the year and what should have happened. That's the process of reconciliation, right? You come up to a zero number, right? Come up to a number that matches everything. So if you said throughout the year that you had 4 dependents, well, at the end of the year, you better have 4 dependents. If you said throughout the year that you only made $25,000 so you could get assistance with your health insurance, well, at the end of the year, you better show up with a W-2 that says $5,000 or $25,000. So that's basically what you're doing, right? It's a process of reconciliation. Reconciling everything you said throughout the year and what really happened. That's what a tax return is. All right, cool. So $39,138, right? That's what we have here on line 38. But here is the process. Here starts the process of understanding the taxable income. Line 40. Line 40 is going to give us our first reduction. So 39,138 minus 12,600. That's going to leave us with 26,538. But there is another deduction, right? That other deduction is called exemptions, right? Which according to this 1040, it says that there's 4,050 per individual. So the IRS determines $4,050 per individual. There's only 2 individuals in this return, therefore you see $8,100 right there. That's a reduction, right? Exemption, reduction. So that means that the IRS is going to calculate my income taxes on line 43. How much money do I still owe to the IRS? How much money do I owe to the IRS, right? So According to these numbers, I need to pay the IRS $1,843, right? $1,143. That's what I have to pay the IRS right now, because that's what the calculation is based on the IRS rules. But we're gonna throw in a lot of things in there. We're gonna throw in some factors in there in a minute. Okay, so this customer has a retirement savings account. Therefore, he receives a credit of $43. That's a non-refundable credit. So as you can see, he has total of non-refundable credits $43. So that means that he still owes the IRS $1,800. His total tax is $1,800. Here, I'll tell you right here. Total tax, $1,800. That's how much money that the customer owes the IRS. But let's go into this part, the payments. The customer has already paid. This is what the IRS says that he owes. He owes $1,800, right? $1,800. The IRS says, hey, you owe me $1,800. And then the customer says, no, wait a minute, I already paid you $2,892. You owe me money. So the difference between these two numbers, right? The difference between these two numbers. So if you do simple math, right, that minus that equals that. And there's your refund, right? You have your refund right there of $1,092. Okay? So the IRS calculated that you owed $1,800, but you said, wait a minute, I already paid you $2,892, so I don't owe you anything, Mr. IRS. Actually, you owe me money. So that is how this number was calculated. That's what you have to be able to explain to the customer. I am not saying that you need to be able to explain with that detail, but you need to know it with that detail. As a registered preparer, as a certified preparer, you need to be able to know this form in detail. You need to know where the numbers come from. Well, why am I only getting $8,100? Oh, Mr. Customer, because based on the law, you get $4,050 in exemptions, and your wife gets $4,050 in exemption. When you add those together, it equals $8,100. Well, why am I only getting $12,600? Because that depends on your filing status. It doesn't depend on us, and it's not something I do, right? But the beautiful part of that is that you start with a certain amount up here, and then the IRS begins to reduce that amount with exemptions, deductions, and then non-refundable credits, right? Some customers are going to have those non-refundable credits, and here you go. Here's some of the non-refundable credits, and I'll show you here. They start on line 46 right here, line 46 and below. Here, let me make a better drawing. They're going to start here on line 46 and below. This is your what you call the non-refundable credits. Things that you're not going to see on your refund, but they are going to help you if you. So, for instance, you have the education credit. Remember that there's a part of that it's not refundable. You have the child tax credit. There's part of that is not refundable, and there's a lot of other credits here that you're going to see. There's the 962. There's the what do we call that? The health insurance credit that you're not going to see as part of your refund, but it is part of the credits that you can claim. So, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a small break, and when we get back, we're going to go into another 1040. We're going to that 1040 is going to have more credits. It's going to have more numbers. And today we're going to go through maybe two 1040s. The point of this is for you to understand numbers and refunds. Why is it that a customer owes money? Why is it that a customer is getting a refund? How is that refund coming? Where is that refund coming from, right? So that's what you're going to understand. And after this course, you're not just going to know that the customer is going to get $1,000. You're going to know how it's that the customer is getting $1,000. And maybe you are able to get this customer more money based on your knowledge, or maybe the $1,000 is what the customer, the most that the customer can legally obtain. I have another customer here. That we're gonna go through for the last 20 some minutes of the class, and then we're gonna wrap the class. We're gonna finish the class today here. And remember, today and tomorrow we're gonna be focused on 1040. This is it. This is why we're doing this, right? 1040. How do the numbers work? How do we know that this is the numbers are right? So again, remember, when you go to the IRS and you take, some of you are gonna take that kind of exam, some of you are not, depending on the depending on your special situation. If you were to go to the IRS today, you have no scenario. Sorry, you have no scenarios, and you have no chat system, right? So it's your knowledge. We're teaching you how to understand the knowledge, right? So sometimes people think that, no, we don't want to help you. It's not that. It's that we want you to get the right knowledge. We want you, just like I am sure of the numbers, we want you to be sure, right? I have learned, right? I have learned to not need anyone else to tell me whether the numbers are right or wrong, because I understand the law, right? So in order for me to understand the law, I had to pay attention to the law, right? I had to pay attention to the forms. I had to pay attention to how the numbers work. I was like you at one point, where this was my first time and I've never done it before. But then I started going, I started, doing returns. I did, thousands of income tax returns for both personal and business. And that's how I learned. I did a lot of studying. I did a lot of reading. There was no simplification of how it works. I just went directly to the books, to the IRS books, took my exams, and passed them, and but it was a lot of learning, right? It was a lot of reading. But I can tell you this: what really helped me was getting the returns done, like actually doing returns. So that's why you got to do all these examples. If you want to graduate from this course, you're gonna have to turn in the right amount of examples before we give you the last test, right? Because we don't just want you to know theory. We also want you to be ready, and this is going to help you a lot. We want to make sure that you are a very, very productive tax preparer. Customer has a question, boom, you have the answer. Customer is questioning why this number, boom, you have the answer, right? And those are the preparers that have a lot of success in this business. Preparers who are prepared. So. All right, let's go into this customer. Customer Richard Johnson. Customer Richard Johnson is married. As you can see, the customer is married. So I have Richard and Karen Johnson. They're married. They also have one dependent. His name is Christopher Johnson. And if you wonder, this return is one of the returns that one of your fellow students created, right? I'm using one of the returns they created from this class. So it's not something we created. We always use your returns as examples. The return has passed and it's perfect. We're going to use it as an example. So this is a return from the PM class. Someone who's been on consistently getting this, consistently in here creating returns. So we're using that as an example. All right, so Christopher Johnson, we understand that he's married. We understand that he is that he also has a dependent. We understand that there's two W-2s right there. There's a Schedule B for income. There's a Schedule C for the credits. There's an 8863 for the student credits. There's an 8867, meaning that there is several credits: EIC, CTC, and American Opportunity Credit. So, and also there's a 2441, right? So more likely there's a bunch of credits on this return. So I'm not going to go form by form. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the summary of 1040 page 1, right? And 1040 page 1, I'm going to go directly to the income part. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to print this. I'm going to take it back to the print format, and I'm going to go ahead and print it. All right, there we go. Mr. Richard Johnson. Mr. Johnson is reporting a total income of, let's see, Mr. Johnson is reporting W-2 income between him and his wife of $38,436. Plus, they have tax, they have interest income, right? So taxable interest income on Schedule B, as you can see, $146. That brings the total income. There's no adjustments. And believe and trust me that there's not going to be much adjustments. Like there's not many people who actually do have the paperwork or the qualifications to get their income adjusted and reduced. So their total income is going to be $38,558, right? That's simple math that the system created for me. And for that, I'm going to go to page 2. And I'm going to focus on page 2, line 38 and below. So that means that, Mr. Customer, the Johnsons, Karen and the Johnsons are reporting total income of $38,582. Because they're married, because they are married, they are reporting, or they're going to receive a standard deduction of $12,600. All right, so that's going to leave their new income at $25,982 because they are married, right? There's 3 people in the return. There is mom, dad, and the dependent. So the IRS says $4,050 per person, so that equals $12,150, right? So minus that equals $13,832, right? So basically that minus that, okay? Again, that minus that. Your new income minus your taxable income or minus your exemption equals $13,832. From that, the IRS says, all right, we have calculated that you have new taxes. Here are your taxes. $1,383. That's what you those are the taxes that were calculated for you for the return, right? Remember, we haven't even talked about how much money they have contributed. We haven't talked about how much money they have paid throughout the year. This is just the taxes based on simple numbers. All right, but here we go. Let's go ahead and start talking about the non-refundable credits. Remember, the non-refundable credits are meant to reduce whatever tax. Whatever tax you have on line 47, line 54, line 55 is going to eat it. Line 55 is going to get rid of it. So whatever tax you have on line 47, line 55 is going to come and get rid of it, right? It's going to do this number right here, right? Whatever number you have there is going to come and get rid of that. So if line 55 is bigger than line 47, that's good. If line 55 is not bigger than line 47, then more likely you're going to have to take care of those taxes somehow, right? And you're still gonna have to pay those taxes, or they're gonna get adjusted by how much taxes you paid. So let me say this one more time. If line 55 is bigger than line 47, that's good. If line 47 is bigger than line 55, then more likely refund's gonna get smaller. Your refund's gonna get smaller, right? So if you cannot pay it from here, more likely you're gonna pay it from here. I'm gonna do that one more time just so you understand. If you here's your tax, right? This is your here's your calculated tax from your taxable income. All right, but between line 48 and line 54, you have what it's called the non-refundable credits. So non-refundable credits, right? That's what we call this. They're credits, but they're not meant to increase your refunds. They're meant to decrease your taxes on line 47, right? So they're meant to increase your taxes on, or to decrease your taxes on line 47. So hopefully you understand that. So remember this: if your line 55 is bigger than your line 47, that's awesome, right? That's great. But if your line 47 is bigger than line 55, that means you're going to have to pay whatever taxes are left. You're going to have to pay them from here. What that means is your refund is going to get smaller. And if you didn't have a refund, what that means you're going to end up paying the IRS more money, right? Cool. So let's go back and let's continue to understand this process. Then you have, so the IRS says you have $1,383 in taxes, but you also have an education credit of 1029, and then you have a child tax credit of 354. So that's going to take care of that, right? So when you go to total tax at the bottom, go to total tax. At the very bottom, you have 0. You don't have any more tax, which means that your refund is going to be beautiful, right? Because you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay taxes from your refund. So happy customer. Happy customer. This is the kind of stuff you got to learn so you can explain to your customer, because your customer's like, oh, well, last year they gave me more. Well, Mr. Customer, this last year and this year are different because of this and that and the other, right? So perfect. So what happens is, right, your total tax is 0 because your non-refundables took care of it. Check it out. Your non-refundable credits took care of it. That is happy stuff, right? Your non-refundables took care of it. So that means that you can enjoy your refund. And how does the refund work? Oh, well, guess what? You pay taxes throughout the year. You and your wife paid a total of $3,474. Money that's coming back to you. And also because of your filing status and your income, you qualify for $1,002 of earned income credit. Awesome. Money that's coming to you. And you also qualify for additional income tax credit. Why? Because you pay taxes and because of your income, right? So that's awesome. Money that's coming to you. And guess what? Because you have Form 8863 and you have the qualified expenses, and you also qualify for a credit. So money that's coming to you. So when you total all of that, just do simple math. You don't even have to do it because the system's going to do it for you. 3,474 plus 1,002 plus 1,000 and additional tax credit plus $810 in education credit. That equals $6,286 right there. Boom. Right, and that is how you explain a tax return. That is how you would understand the numbers. So today we talked about positive numbers. Tomorrow we're going to talk about negative numbers. How do you explain that situation when the customer has to pay money, and why does it have to pay money? And it usually is because he has taxes here on line 47 and he has 0 non-refundables, right? He qualifies. He possibly also has self-employed tax, so his tax bill has gotten bigger and bigger, right? So today we went through 2 tax returns and we understood how to explain the 1040 to the customer, because at the end of the day, you got to remember this. Form 1040 is the most important form. When you talk about an income tax return, you're talking about a Form 1040, page 1, 2, and sometimes 3. But this is the important part. A customer cannot leave your office without this form and without having signed that form, right? So the customer cannot leave the office without having a explained form, a correctly explained form, and without a signature. All right, perfect. So one last thing I'm gonna show you before we finish class. Remember, this class is only 1 hour. It's not your typical hour and 30 minutes. So I'm going to explain one last thing to you, or just show you. So one of the cool capabilities, one of the cool things that you can do in this system is that you can, as you're working, as you're building the system, and you can type the email address, right, of the customer. So I'm going to go ahead and type that, josh@dnjfin.net, and I'm going to change the phone number of the customer, right? So you can see the whole thing, 469-781-6192. All right, so I've done two things. I've added the email address for the customer, and look, if a customer has a Facebook account, they have email address. Most people nowadays have email address, and this is good for you, especially if you're working from someone out of state. Let's say you're working from someone from Oklahoma, or you're working from someone from maybe from Houston, and or they're just out of the city, too far from you. Have them send you all the documents. They can send them to you via email, via text message, however they feel comfortable. Have them send you all the documents, and you're gonna have to create the return. You're gonna have to email the return to them. So for that, you need the email, right? You're gonna need the email. Perfect. So once you have the email in there, in the phone number, what's going to happen is that you can click on the option up here, the option on the very top, and say email this to the customer. So the system is going to email the return to the customer. You can create a password for the customer, or you can auto-generate it. Just click on that gray button that says generate password, and what's going to happen is that when I click send here, I'm going to receive the file, and I'm also going to receive a text message with the password. This password is going to come to my email, and I'll show you. So it says that the email was sent, and I have in my text message box right now, and I'm going to show you how that looks, just so you don't have any so you're not wondering how that looks. Check it out. I just received this email from help@dnjfin.net, and it says Josue Alballero from J&J Income Tax Service has sent you your 2016 tax return. So perfect. So I'm going to click on this, and remember that password. That password that it's in my phone. So I'm going to click here on download, and it's going to ask me for that password. And I have that password on my phone right now because I just received it. I just got that text message with the password. So I'm going to go ahead and type that password in here. You can do this from the phone as well. All right. So as you can see, the document downloaded, and now I can open the document, and here you go. There you are. No problems. You already sent the 1040 to the customer, and the customer can send it back to you, and we'll talk about that later on, how the customer can send it back to you. But I just wanted to show you a few some of the cool things that the system has for you, especially when you're working with those customers out of state, right? You're working with those customers out of state or out of town, and you know, how are you going to get them the forms? You can just get in the form, and the customer can print it, sign it, and send you a picture of it. Later on, we're going to talk about. Remember that the actual course ends this week. This is the last week of the course, but we're going to have more workshops. We're going to have a workshop focused on state returns. We're going to have a workshop focused on how to run your business correctly. We're going to have a workshop focused on technology, and we want you to be there because some of them are required if you're a franchise. Some of them are not required, but there's a lot of cool things that we have, a lot of technology that we have that is going to make your life easy. The more you embrace technology, the easier it's going to be for you to make money. Imagine when you can make a return in 5-10 minutes and make $100, $150 out of that return. That's great, right? You can make a lot of money in very little time. So we're also going to talk about our phone application, how that works, how you can use it. But that's going to be on the workshops. But the first thing you need to do is pass your income tax course.